but oh, hey, 50% of the population is women. It feels like the math is kind of straightforward there.
Yeah, 100%. I also think that we also got to realize that there's a lot of internal women too that I don't think that these stats ever pick up, that are in project management, site management, Paul, like all these other different types of trades. But I also would say that, the other thing that doesn't hit that stat is there's probably about 2 to 3% of women, Paul, that don't make it because of the, the headwinds. And I've seen it my whole career. And so when you have these women who have had the courage to go into the trades, they're maybe one of two in a classroom of 20, and they love what they're doing. They're ready to go. They get out on a job site, and you've just got that arsehole that just does not get it. And we've, myself and a lot of the advocates of women that are in the industry have spent some good time, really mentoring and talking these women down from quitting, because they're just like, I didn't sign up for this. I didn't sign up to be catcalled, when I have as many skills as he does or more. So that's something that's really starting to change, Paul. But like everything, we started too late. And so now we're not going to fix everything overnight.
All right. And finally, Mandy, and I appreciate the time here, is then if you're making a pitch to someone to go into the trades, what's your pitch?
My pitch is, who the hell wants to be a millionaire? And it works every time, Paul, because I look at them and I say, if I can do it with what the adversity that I was challenged with 30 years ago, today with all the avenues, all the support, all the mentorship, Paul, they can too. Because I can tell you what, every consumer that opens up the door and sees a woman standing there with her iPad or her clipboard ready to give them a quote, you'll see it's catching on, and it's gonna keep going.
Well, Mandy, I've said it. If I said it once, I said it 100 times. I should have been a millwright.
100%. But you do have a great voice for radio, Paul. I got to tell you.
Well, I appreciate it. Mandy Renahan, thanks so much.
Thank you, Paul. I really appreciate the time.
Mandy Renahan is the CEO of Freshco, the construction company, not the grocery store. That's all for this week. The Cost of Living is based in Calgary. The show is produced by Danielle Nerman, Ellis Cho, and Jennifer Keene, with help from Caroline Ferris. Our executive producer is Tracy Johnson. I'm Paul Habersrud. Thanks for listening.
This is CBC Radio 1, 990 AM, 89.3 FM in Winnipeg.
You have lots of questions about your own life and this really complex world around you. I'm Saroja Coelho. I'm the host of the new live call-in show, Just Asking. I take your questions about what's in the news or your finances, health, even your relationships, and then throw them to an expert. Just Asking. Let's figure it out together.
Just Asking with Saroja Coelho. Live Saturday afternoon at 5 Eastern, 2 Pacific, and on CBC Listen.
You know the feeling of finding a really good podcast? Or the feeling of someone always being there, like your favorite radio show? Stream CBC Podcasts, CBC Music, and CBC Radio anytime, anywhere.
This is CBC News. Good afternoon, I'm Riley Lachuk. At noon, 10 degrees in Winnipeg this hour, a partly cloudy sky, light winds at the moment. We're expecting a mix of sun and clouds this afternoon, forecast high in the city today. 13 degrees. RCMP confirm it was arson that destroyed a historic theater in
Firefighters
northern
from the
Manitoba. Fire broke out at the 100-year-old Lido Theater in the Pas early yesterday morning. Former owner August Rivelin says losing the theater will have a big impact on the community. The Lido was the first theater in Western Canada specifically designed for movies with sound. Former fashion mogul Peter Nygaard is once again looking for a new lawyer. This after the one he was trying to hire last month said he couldn't take on the job. Lawyer Tim Valgertson told the Winnipeg court this morning that he realized taking on Nygaard as a client would put him in a conflict. Nygaard is now in the process of finding another lawyer. Nygaard's previous lawyer withdrew from the case for ethical reasons in January. He told the judge that there had been an irreconcilable breakdown in the solicitor-client relationship. Nygaard was charged with sexual assault and unlawful confinement in Winnipeg last year in connection with an alleged sexual assault of a 20-year-old woman in November of 1993. The charges have not been proven in court. The president of WOW Hospitality hopes the city reconsiders closing the concourse under Portage in Main. Doug Stevens says the day before Mayor Scott Gillingham announced the iconic intersection will reopen to pedestrians, he opened 529 Uptown. It's an upscale burger restaurant in the lobby of 201 Main. He likes the idea of opening the intersection, but worries about closing the concourse underneath.
It will isolate the buildings, and there are a number of people that use that underground for getting about downtown.
Stephen says he's spoken to his clients who say they likely won't come to his restaurant if they have to bundle up to cross Portage and Main to get there. He'd like the best of both worlds, with both the intersection and the concourse remaining open. Manitoba is having a moment, and with those words, Premier Wab Kinew says the Winnipeg Sea Bears and the province are hosting the 2025 Canadian Elite Basketball Championships. Kinew says the Sea Bears are part of the excitement in the province. He says the event will bring economic activity and tourists downtown next summer. The Manitoba government is kicking in $1 million to support hosting the championship weekend. The event is estimated to bring a $4.5 million boost to Manitoba's economy. Well, ahead of next week's budget, the federal government continues to roll out new spending initiatives. The latest is the Youth Mental Health Fund, introduced today by Deputy Prime Minister Chrystia Freeland in Ottawa.
Too many younger Canadians feel as though the deck is stacked against them. They can get a good job, they can work hard, but far too often, the reward of a secure, prosperous, middle-class life remains out of reach. We want younger Canadians to have the support they need so that they are set up for success.
Freeland says the federal budget set to be tabled next week will include $500 million for the new fund. She says it is designed to provide more mental health care options, reduce wait times, and assist younger people who are seeking help. British Foreign Secretary David Cameron is in Washington to appeal for more defense spending for Ukraine.
We know that if we give the Ukrainians the support they deserve, they can win this war, they can achieve the just peace that they deserve.
Cameron is trying to convince Congress, particularly senior Republicans, to unlock defense funds for Kyiv. The former British leader argues Ukraine's victory in its war with Russia is vital for both American and European security. A $60 billion U.S. package of military aid is stuck in the House of Representatives. Some Republicans oppose the bill outright, and others are demanding more action on U.S. border security before supporting it. A top European court has ruled Switzerland violated human rights by failing to protect its citizens from climate change. A group of more than 2,000 elderly Swiss women brought the case forward. They argued government inaction on global warming negatively affected their health and living conditions. Lucy Maxwell is co-director of the Climate Litigation Network.
It affirms that the European Convention on Human Rights applies to the climate crisis, that governments have legal duties to act, and they've upheld the right of people to go to court and challenge their government's weak climate action.
In its ruling, the court says Switzerland failed to reduce its carbon emissions as planned or set a national carbon budget. And King Charles has been presented with the new British currency bills featuring his portrait.
We have come to present you with your banknotes.
The king will appear on 5, 10, 20, and 50-pound polymer banknotes. Sarah John speaks for the Bank of England.
It's been a tradition to gift the reigning monarch with the lowest numbered banknotes for a long time. But this is the first time that we've had 4 new banknotes coming out at once. So it's a great pleasure to be able to show the King what he's going to look like on the banknotes of the future.
The new bills with Charles's portrait will continue to be circulated alongside existing ones that feature the late Queen Elizabeth. And that is the CBC News from Winnipeg. I'll be back with more local news at 12:30 in Winnipeg today. High of 13 degrees, a mix of sun and clouds. 15 in Brandon this afternoon. Thompson's looking at a mix of sun and cloud as well today and a high of 14. You're listening to CBC Radio 1.
Hello, my friends. Happy Tuesday. It's Janet Stewart, your host for Radio Noon. Thanks for joining us today. You know, in 1873, it was an upstart that ignored the odds and went on to become the 3rd largest city in Canada in just over 3 decades. That city, Winnipeg. We're going to talk with CBC's Darren Bernhardt to figure out how the city has changed over 150 years a little later in the program. And we'll talk all things science. Hundreds of kids have gathered in Brandon to show off their science projects. We're going to speak to a longtime volunteer organizer and a very science-savvy student. But first, making a difference now that the last winter road has closed. According to the province, the last remaining stretch of Manitoba's winter road network closed yesterday. That was the road to Matheson Island, which is really in the southern region impacted by winter roads. The Keewatin Tribal Council represents 11 Northern First Nations in Manitoba, Northern First Nations, 9 of which are fly-in communities. They depend on winter roads to bring in all the heavy stuff needed for the year. If fuel or construction supplies have to be flown in instead of arriving by truck, the cost just skyrockets. That's just one of KTC Grand Chief Walter Wistacekut's concerns. I had the chance to speak with him this morning. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
What are you hearing from the communities you represent about the winter road season this year?
Well, at the beginning, a number of our leaders believed there was no plan to address the issues that may have cropped up over the winter road season. Since then, there was an ongoing group of people that met to address any immediate concerns from the communities that went pretty well, I thought. But, there was no plan to address the shorter season.
How much shorter was the season this year than normal? Any idea how many days roads were open?
December, January, usually the roads are open. They didn't open until, I believe, February this year.
Now, we know that makes it a lot more expensive to bring in large, heavy things like fuel and building supplies. How much more expensive?
I'm not certain as to the cost, but I know that due to the short window, more suppliers had to line up on the Highway 6 getting into the eastern communities and further north here in Thompson waiting to get out.
So there was a lineup, there was a backlog.
The situation with our 11 nations with, there's 2 that have access through Highway 280, but they drive on that road at their peril. Nobody gets excited about driving 280. And then there's 9 of them that have no all-season road access whatsoever, so they're forever in a state of high cost of living. Anything that they do bring into their communities, they do it at a big cost to them through air freight. So, one flight from Thompson to York Landing, for example, which is a 20-minute flight, costs $400 one way. Yeah, and then you add on top of that the cost for whatever you're taking into the community, your groceries or whatever you need in your community.
You've written several letters to federal and provincial government officials over the last few months through this winter, asking for urgent meetings. What
Yes.
kind of response have you gotten?
I have no response whatsoever from Canada. I wrote a letter to the Prime Minister, to the Minister of Indigenous Services Canada. We have had discussions with provincial government. In fact, I received a call yesterday from Minister Moses to talk about the anticipated forest fire situation that we may face given the drier climate. He's the one that reached out to me. I didn't have to send him any correspondence related to this matter. Not so with the federal government.
Not so with the federal government.
No, they're absent up to this point. When our 11 nations first declared the regional state of emergency, the federal government came through with what they refer to as a senior officials table. Our proposal was to carry that on and include federal ministers at that table. That hasn't been actioned.
And what would your message for them be? What do you ultimately want? An all-weather road?
Yes. Our people desperately need major investment from Canada and Manitoba to accommodate all-season roads into each of our communities and to improve Highway 280.
What difference would that road make to the quality of people's lives?
I think it'll be immensely, I think it'll be a great improvement due to their mental health, economically, socially. They would have access to the outside world. They could leave and return when they wanted to, and it's good for them. The cost of transporting their goods into their communities would be lower. So their cost of living would be lowered, and it would just benefit everybody. It would be a major stimulus to Manitoba's economy for sure. The construction phase, but also all of the spin-off benefits from having an all-season road. They should enjoy the quality of life all Canadians enjoy just by being at home. They should have the same infrastructure that others in Canada enjoy. These people gave up so much so the settler society can enjoy the benefits that they do have. And here they are, they're still isolated in remote communities.
And what impact is that isolation having?
Well, high cost of living. We have an opioid crisis in our communities. We have suicide epidemics in our communities. The trauma over time manifests itself in criminal activity, the opioids, the suicides. Not good. Moving forward, we have to find a way where the Canada Infrastructure Bank has expressed an interest in participating in developing all-season roads, but we have to demonstrate how that investment could be recouped by the Canada Infrastructure Bank.
And what kind of investment are we talking about financially?
Desktop, $4 billion.
It's a lot of money.
A lot of lives at stake.
Grand Chief, thank you so much for taking the time to talk with us today.
Okay, thank you very much.
That was Keewatin Tribal Councillor Walter Wistasicut speaking with us today from Thompson. In Thompson right now, it is 10 degrees under a partly cloudy sky. It's going to be a mix of cloud and sky today. Clouded sky, as always. Sky. A mix of sun and cloud, a high of 14 degrees in Thompson today. Tomorrow's going to be mainly cloudy with a 30% chance of showers in the afternoon and a high of 13 in Thompson, Manitoba. In Brandon right now, we're sitting at a sunny 15 degrees. Beautiful. That's our high today. Current conditions are 7. It's partly cloudy. I was being a bit optimistic there. We are hoping to get up to 15. That's what we're expecting today. Going to clear this afternoon, but clouds coming back in this evening ahead of a 30% chance of showers tomorrow afternoon. And in Winnipeg, we're sitting at 10 degrees under, again, a mix of sun and cloud. Our high today will be 13 degrees. And we, too, have a 30% chance of showers tomorrow afternoon.
Earth Day at Fort White Alive is a magical time, and this one is for the birds. Let's celebrate not by looking at the earth below, but by looking up to the skies at our feathered friends who make this place so special. I'm Bryce Hoy. Join me for a virtual bird tour. Come to Fort White Alive's Earth Day celebration April 21st and follow the posted QR codes to learn some amazing bird facts. Visit cbc.ca/Manitoba/community for more.
If you get a chance to connect with Bryce on Earth Day, it'll be fun. He's so passionate about all things to do with nature and birding. That's something a lot of people in Winnipeg love to do. Our city, Winnipeg, marks its 150th anniversary as a city this year, when the Manitoba legislature passed the act that officially made Winnipeg a city. It was back on November 8th, 1873. And at that time, there were 1,869 people living here. In 3 decades, Winnipeg went from an isolated frontier upstart to what would become the 3rd largest city in Canada at the time. CBC reporter Darren Bernhardt loves digging back in the archives. He and CBC's Marcy Marcusa spoke this morning about how the city has changed.
Good morning.
Good morning, Mars.
I love historical pieces. I'm so glad for this one. Now, you were in your happy place too, I understand, going through a lot of old photos, right? What'd you find?
So much my happy place. Right now is my happy place because I'm listening to you guys. I have to say, I was practicing this voice the other day, going just old CBC style. This is Darren Bernhardt. That's why.
It's going to take us an hour to get through the report if we go back to the old school pacing.
Anyway, yes. I love looking at old photos. I love looking at old photos. I do it all the time, and what I love to do is try to imagine those places as they are now. So that's what I did with CBC videographer Trevor Bryan. I found a bunch of images from the time Winnipeg's birth, and we printed them off, and we headed to the same locations to recreate them.
That's so cool.
And what we found was, as expected, a drastic difference. I think the change is best described by historian Gordon Goldsborough, who we met up with on Main Street between 2 spots cited as the birthplaces of Winnipeg, Upper Fort Garry and the corner of Portage-Germain. Have a listen.
Well, I think if you could somehow bring somebody back from that time period to now and standing on this spot, nothing about this view would be the same. You know, they would be amazed at all the utility poles and the pavement and the sidewalks and the tall buildings. Everything would have looked different.
So you've handed me some photos here for that people can see online here, right? Goldsborough talking about how everything has changed. Wow, is it ever apparent when you look at these? We do still have old buildings in the city, though.
Oh, yeah, for sure. There are pockets of historical buildings throughout downtown and in many of the suburbs. Like a lot of these neighborhoods, the Colonians are very old. But they don't date back to those first days. Here, I'll let Goldsborough explain that as well.
Most of it is from a later period. There are very few buildings left from the 1870s. Most of the buildings in the Exchange District, we always look at that as sort of the most historic part of the city, and most of it is dating from the 1880s and onward.
Is there anything left from Winnipeg's earliest days as a city? Because even for myself, and I thought I seen a lot of historical photos, these ones you've pulled with the really, it looks like It looks like a saloon street in an old Western that you might see somewhere on Netflix, right? I've never seen photos of Winnipeg like this. Is there anything left?
And that one you're holding, that's Portage and Main.
This is?
That's Portage and
Wow.
Main. Yeah, just on the to the right there would be where the Bank of Montreal stands.
Look at the covered wagon. There's a
Isn't that
covered
great?
wagon in this photo.
Yeah, covered wagon.
Yeah, wood-spoked wheels on it.
Yeah.
What is left then?
Yeah, honestly, not much. The only remnant really is the Upper Fort Garry Gate near Main and Broadway. Back in 1874, the Hudson's Bay Fort, it was massive, right? It was 2,000 square foot structure, and it extended right across Main Street. But it became a casualty of the growing city and was gradually demolished between 1881 and 1888. To give you an example of how quickly the city grew, it was just 5 square kilometers in 1873 when we became a city and had, as you mentioned, just over 1,800 people. Within a year, there were 3,700 people, and by 1911, it was the 3rd largest city in Canada with a population of 136,000. Today, there are almost 800,000 people, and the city covers 462 square kilometers. It was 5 square kilometers at that time. And another major change I want to mention is traffic. Back in the 1870s, as the picture you were just looking at, congestion would have been a few wagons on the streets. Today, there are over 600,000 vehicles registered in Winnipeg. And even then, even despite the few bit of traffic back in the city's early days, there still would have been some road noise thanks to Red River carts. Here's Goldsboro again.
Oh, heck yeah. They didn't use any grease in the bearings, and so there would have been this loud screeching noise as they went down the street. But that would be about it. It would have been a much quieter place than it is today.
I know we pulled some of that sound when we were doing this stuff around the 100th anniversary of the general strike in Winnipeg.
Yeah.
And he's right. It was surprising how noisy some of that all was on the streets. Now, you actually hit the street to sort of show some of these photos to Winnipeggers. Is that right?
We did. What
do people say?
It was really interesting to see the reactions. So they'd look at these photos, then look up again to see what the view is, and then look back at the photos. And their reactions were so wild. Like all of them were just gasping. But so one of the people we spoke to is Katie Desolé. We met up with her on Main Street near City Hall and showed her an 1875 photo taken from the same spot, kind of looking towards Bannatyne. Here's her response.
Oh my gosh. Isn't that unreal? When was this?
1875. I have
Wow.
pictures from 1874 showed the exact same thing.
Oh my gosh, that's so cool. It looks like almost residential. Wow. How enlightening.
So where did you find all the photos?
Well, I was dig up in Manitoba archives, fantastic stuff there. But these ones, the city, I have to give kudos to the city of Winnipeg. They have put together some amazing anniversary features on their website. So the City of Winnipeg archives, their Winnipeg in Focus, they've pulled together a lot of the photos. They have such great information, even documents and reports and different things. So if somebody can get a chance, Google the City of Winnipeg archives or Winnipeg in Focus. There's a lot of great stuff right there.
I do have to ask you a question before you go, though, about math, because Winnipeg became a city in November 1873. Why are we celebrating our 150th anniversary this year in 2024? The math doesn't work.
Yeah, no, that's a really good question and one that comes up a lot. It's because the first civic election, which established the inaugural city council, didn't happen until January 5th, 1874. And that new council met later that same month. So the city formally commemorates that as its start. 1873 was when it was inaugurated, but 1874 is really when things began.
Darren Bernhardt doing the math for us, explaining it all. He's a reporter with CBC Manitoba. And of course, he was speaking with the CBC's Marcy Marcusa this morning. If you want to see some of the amazing photographs that Darren found, how they compare to the same area today, check out the story on our website, cbc.ca/Manitoba. And remember, you can watch our radio programs as well on YouTube. Just look for CBC Manitoba's YouTube page. It is 12:24. I'm Janet Stewart, and you're listening to Radio Noon here on CBC Radio 1, 89.3 in Winnipeg, 990 AM, and everywhere on the CBC Listen app. When it comes to place names, you know that referencing historic figures has become increasingly problematic. One of the most controversial people is Christopher Columbus. The Italian explorer has been credited with discovering the so-called New World. Cities, streets, and in our city, a community center have been named in his honor. He's commemorated with statues right across the continent, but recently some of those statues have been coming down. Columbus's legacy has shifted from explorer to invader and enslaver, the man who paved the way for the colonization of the Americas. Sean French is Ganawage Mohawk and wants to see every street, every center named after Christopher Columbus changed in name, including Avenue Christophe Colomb in Montreal. Sean's been marching along that street, telling everyone he can about the explorer's history. He says he'll keep that up until the city renames the street.
Initially, I just made posts on Facebook about it, and I created a few groups on Facebook with the name Decolumbize, which is a combination of decolonize, and I threw Columbus into it. But all place names related to Columbus, I'm basically trying to get rid of those. And people were agreeing with me on Facebook, but nobody was actually doing anything. So I thought, well, maybe I got to do it myself. So I started just doing my own personal protests, just marching on by myself. Just as a show of protest, I marched down Christophe Colomb and Atadagon, actually, with my warrior flag, and then just talking to people as I met them. So like marching on Christophe Colomb, I started talking to people. I mean, overwhelmingly, the support was very positive. I was quite surprised with that. And so I've been marching around the area several times, and my flag, my warrior flag, is actually mounted on a flagpole that swivels. And I have a custom harness that I bought that I sit the flagpole into, and I march with it that way. So I'm holding it up, and the flag flies behind me. If the wind swings to the right or to the left, the pole swings with it. So it flies above my head. I have to duck down to watch out for some lower trees and street signals. You know, like intersections, the crosswalk signals and stuff. I got to watch out for those. But overall, I'm walking with the flag flying. The longest march I had there, I walked to the north end of Christophe Colomb Avenue. It took me a few hours to make the walk because I got tired because I am a large person and I'm in my 50s. So it's not exactly an easy walk for me because I'm not in the greatest of shape. I was pretty sore afterwards because I think I did over 14, 15 kilometers. I think I walked altogether that day. And it got dark by the time I got back to my car and went home.
Sean French, who is Mohawk, is on a mission to rename streets that recognize Christopher Columbus. He's part of an Unreserved episode about returning Indigenous place names. Unreserved with Rosanna Deerchild airs today at 1 p.m., or you can listen to it anytime you want on the CBC Listen app. And now let's listen to a tune from Indigenous singer-songwriter Ethan Lyric. I just kind of combined his two names there. Do you like how I did that? Ethan Lyric is from Winnipeg. Off his debut EP of the same name, this is Saskatoon Berries.
From Kelowna to Saskatoon, you make my heart tune. Like the shores of P.I. ripped apart and left to dry. And real estate properties dropping, and my mind is split too. One half's on the East Coast, the other one's watching you. From Winnipeg to anywhere better than this. Like road trips with gas stations and towns we miss. Oh, and real estate properties dropping, and my mind is split too. One half's on my hometown, the other one's watching you. Oh, and I don't know why I name these silly places off, 'cause I don't want to be anywhere if you're not there too. So from Kelowna to Saskatoon.
I feel like singing along, but that would wreck this beautiful tune. This is by Ethan Lyric. It's called Saskatoon Berries from his debut EP of the same name. Still ahead today on Radio Noon, we are going to talk about science, all things science. Hundreds of children are gathered in Brandon to show off their science projects. One of them is a very science-savvy student, and he has a science project about foods and how they impact your moods. He's brilliant. Wait till you meet him. Coming up in just a few minutes here on CBC Radio Noon. Now, here's your newscast.
This is CBC News. Good afternoon, I'm Riley Lachuk. It's 12:30 and 11 degrees in Winnipeg. This hour, we're on the way to a high of 13 this afternoon under a mix of sun and clouds. The RCMP are looking for a suspect in an arson that destroyed an iconic northern Manitoba theatre. The 95-year-old Lido Theatre in the Paw went up in flames early yesterday morning. The Mounties now say that fire was set on purpose. Crews tried to put out the fire yesterday but couldn't save the Lido. The theatre opened in 1930 and hosted films, live theatre, and musical performances. Canada's biggest annual basketball event is coming to Winnipeg. The Sea Bears will host the league championship in 2025. It, of course, will be a big event for the city. Even if you aren't a basketball fan, the CBC's Ian Fraze has more.
The Canadian Elite Basketball League says it was unanimous. The league chose the Winnipeg Sea Bears' bid for the 2025 championship weekend over a few other cities. It'll happen sometime in August. Billed as a celebration of basketball, music, and culture, the weekend will include the league championship, possibly some semifinal games, a free concert, and something for minor basketball players. The Sea Bears expects the event to build on the franchise's early success. In its first year, the Sea Bears broke league attendance records repeatedly. Tourism Winnipeg anticipates the weekend will generate $5 million into the local economy. 2025 is shaping up to be a busy year on Winnipeg's sports calendar. The Grey Cup will be hosted in November. Ian Fraze, CBC News, Winnipeg.
An agreement in principle has been reached between WestJet's Encore Airline and its pilots union. The Airline Pilots Association says progress has been made after 7 months of negotiations with the Calgary-based airline. Key issues included compensation and scheduling, but a tentative agreement is now in the works. More than 350 pilots could have walked off the job as early as April 17th. WestJet Encore flies into both Brandon and Winnipeg's airports. Nobel Prize-winning physicist Peter Higgs, who proposed the existence of the Higgs boson particle, has died. The British scientist predicted the new particle's existence in 1964, but it would be almost 50 years before it could be confirmed at the Large Hadron Collider. Peter Higgs was 94 years old. And finally, Canada's two biggest mobile carriers say, as expected, there was a major surge in wireless traffic during yesterday's solar eclipse. Bell is reporting 5 times its regular volume of traffic during peak viewing times. Rogers' volume was 6 times higher than usual. Both companies say they brought in portable mobile towers to keep their networks from crashing. And that is the CBC News from Winnipeg. Did you get a chance to see it yesterday?
No, I didn't. That's how I saw it.
Yep.
I watched it on television.
Yes.
Okay. I did not
way.
actually stick my head out or anything like that. I didn't have the glasses, and I didn't want to be safe.
Well, it was cloudy here in the downtown. We did step out a little bit before 2 yesterday here outside the office, and it cleared just enough.
Just enough so you could see.
Just enough so you could see it with the glasses.
Ta-da.
As a few people had the glasses here.
I know there were a lot of students at the University of Winnipeg out on the lawn.
Yes.
Did you grab a picture of it? Because I know you do like to take photos. You didn't.
It was it was it would have been too small, of course, with my iPhone. But yes, I did rely on, of course, our wonderful videographers here to get some, because of course they had the filters and stuff for the cameras too. So
absolutely,
some
and those
great images,
those long lenses that you just love for getting something nice and up close. Riley, thank you so much.
No problem.
That's Riley Lachuk with your news desk, of course. Now, I'm looking forward to when Riley takes back on the weather chair, because I'm looking at the forecast now. coming up this week. And yeah, today we're sitting at just about normal temperatures for this time of year. In Winnipeg, we're heading to 13 degrees under a mix of sun and cloud. In Brandon, 15 degrees under bright sunny skies, and 14 degrees in Thompson. So pretty much the same temperature all over the province. Tomorrow, a 30% chance of showers for all of us, really, the entire province. But then things get variable. It stays fairly cool up north. Cloudy and 3 degrees on Thursday. The sun peaks out on Friday, Saturday, and the temperature creeps up 7 degrees. Then 11 for Saturday and Sunday. Now remember, that's the long range forecast. Winnipeg, though, 15 degrees under the showery skies tomorrow, 14 and sunny on Thursday, 13 and sunny on Friday. And then the 20s, we hit the 20s for the weekend. Really? I mean, I've been doing this long enough to be a little, cautious when it comes to those long-range forecasts. So much can change. So, Brandon, don't get too excited when I tell you that the forecast for your Saturday coming up is sunshine and 27 degrees. 27. We've got a ways to go before we get there because that is Saturday. The forecast for Wednesday, 16 degrees, even a slight chance we could see some lightning. Thursday, 13 degrees under a mix of sun and cloud. Sunshine for your Friday, 16 degrees, which is lovely enough, but then 27 for April 13th, your Saturday. We'll be watching to see if that really does develop. It is 12:36 here on CBC Radio Noon. The Western Manitoba Science Fair is on now at Brandon University's Healthy Living Centre. It's the regional science fair for all of Western Manitoba. 368 students are there today from grades 1 to 12, gathered with their 258 science projects. Charlotte McConnell is a longtime volunteer who now helps organize the fair. I spoke with her this morning. Now, I understand there's judging happening as we speak.
Yeah.
Can you tell me about some of the things you've seen, some of the experiments?
Yeah, so we have actually our kids divided up into two separate gyms. So the grade 1 to 4 are in one gym, and then the grade 5 to 12s are in another gym. So you can kind of walk through each of those gyms and get an idea of kind of the level of science that they're at, and, kind of their excitement for the day is a little different between the two. But, yeah, wandering through, especially the grades 7 to 12 projects, you see just how smart the kids are that are out there and how much work they put into their science fair projects.
Are there any projects that stand out in your mind?
I haven't had too much of a chance to look through all of them yet, but yes, I have seen a few, and I think we've got a few really excellent projects this year.
Can you tell us about them?
I probably don't have enough details on them yet to be able to go into too much detail on them. It's early in the day yet, but
when you think back to yourself in science class, could you have come up with something like they're doing?
That's kind of the interesting thing about this for me is I really enjoyed science class in high school and university, but I was nowhere near as creative as these kids are. So I think that's kind of why I'm intrigued by it. It's just so neat to see the creativity and the ingenuity that they use to kind of bring their project to life and the ideas they come up with, and having them all together in one room is just really exciting.
How long have you been involved with this science fair?
I've been involved for over 10 years in some capacity. I started just volunteering for a couple little jobs with the science fair and quickly got more involved. And now in the last, 5 or 6 years, I'm one of the fair organizers.
Still volunteer, though?
Oh, yes. Everything's volunteer.
Why do you do it, Charlotte?
I just like the opportunity it gives to the students. It gives them a spot to kind of show their hard work to not just their teachers and their classmates. The public gets to see it, and they get a little recognition. And I also like the idea that it kind of fosters science. I think science is really important.
You've been doing this for 10 years. Do you see a difference that it makes in students?
Yeah, I think so. we've seen a lot of our students are ones that come back each year, so they compete in their school fairs, and then the winners from the school fair come to this regional fair. And so a lot of them enjoy their experience here, so they compete every year and they come every year. And you can see the ones who have come every year, their projects get a little more detailed and a little better. And yeah, you can definitely tell that science fair has an effect on them.
What words would you use to describe that effect on them?
Probably it's just a cumulative effect of the experience of judging, especially. So when a judge comes and looks at your project and the work that you've done and kind of makes some suggestions, and you take those suggestions and implement them into your project and your idea for next year, and it kind of just grows and year after year and makes your project as best as possible.
But what does that do for like self-esteem for these
Oh yeah,
young
it does a
people?
lot for their self-esteem. It's kind of the validation of their learning, and their curiosity is a big one, right? They're curious about something, which is the most important thing, and what do they do with that? So this is giving them a opportunity to kind of funnel that into something tangible that they can show and get approval on and get comments on and kind of get judged on and compete with. And yeah, it's kind of fostering that curiosity and kind of turning that into something productive.
Do you ever get emotional when you think about it?
A little bit. It is emotional kind of when you get to the end of the day. It's a lot of work putting on a large event, but at the same time, just seeing that it makes kids really, really happy, and you get through the 2 award ceremonies and everyone's taking a group picture at the end, and yeah, you can get a little emotional.
Yeah, I'm welling with pride just thinking about it.
So our top 4 students will be moving on to the Canada-wide Science Fair.
Wow, where's that being held?
That's in Ottawa this year. Yeah, so all the regional fairs like us across Canada that are happening right around now, their top students move on to the Canada-wide Science Fair, which is at the end of May in Ottawa. And they have about 500 students that go to that. And that's just grade 7 and up.
Do the parents have to pay for the travel?
No, that's one of the perks of winning at our fair is we pay for their trip to go.
That's a big deal.
Yes, it is. It's around $2,000 a piece. And it's a week-long trip, and they get to fly on a plane, and stay at a university, and it's a neat experience for them.
So exciting. And staying at a university, too, probably sparks them to go
Yep,
further.
That's a big part of that is, the experience of Canada-wide Science Fair is just awesome for them. They get to kind of get a taste of that university life and travel, and yeah, it's really good.
Thank you very much for your time today.
Yes, thank you.
That was Charlotte McConnell, who organizes the Western Manitoba Science Fair. Abraham Mojes is a grade 7 student at Christian Heritage School. I also had a chance to chat with him. What is the name of your project?
Mood Foods, a comprehensive study investigating the impact of nutrient-rich snacks on cognitive performance, productivity, and mental well-being.
How long have you been working on it?
I've been working on it for about 2 months now.
Oh, and what did you do?
I basically investigated the impact of nutrient-rich snacks and snacks devoid of nutrients on cognitive performance, such as reaction time, verbal memory, processing speed, and mental arithmetic.
And what did you find?
I found out that almonds, which contained magnesium, had the best effect on cognitive performance.
You think it's the magnesium that does it?
Yep, it's probably the magnesium, as it helps with neurotransmission and fetal brain development.
Why nutrition? Why was this of interest to you?
Well, me and my brother were playing chess one day after school, and he had won 2 games, which is very unusual to me. And our mom told us that we had snacks left over from school, and after that we ate our leftover snacks. I had orange slices, he had chips. And after this, we watched a bit of TV, and I'd won 3 games after that, and that got me thinking, do nutrients really affect brain health and cognitive performance?
And sure enough, they do. That was a conversation I had with Abraham Mojes. He's a grade 7 student at Christian Heritage School. I was speaking to him from the Western Manitoba Science Fair at Brandon University's Healthy Living Center. Judging has just wrapped up there now, and they'll announce the winners tonight from 6:30 to 8 p.m. It is 12:44 here on Radio Noon. I'm Janet Stewart. Thanks for being with us today. Winnipeg folk group Leaf Rapids release their sophomore album next week. This is the first single off it. It's called Starling to a Starling.
I'm tethered to you like a starling to a starling. Think I'm hypnotized. The dark is looming. Won't you dose me, darling? Dance me through the twilight sky. Hallelujah, sing the steeples and we pass. Then we dive down deep and we hear the gutters gasp. Hallelujah, sing the scrapers in the sky. And we never catch a penny, but we try. With you, I fly wild. My synchro mystery, I have no existence before reflected in your eyes. Whether near or far, my heart's a tethered starling, dancing in the twilight sky. Hallelujah, sing the maples that we pass. Then we dive down deep and we nearly meet the grass. Hallelujah, sing the wily satellites. And we never catch a comet, but we try. With you, I fly wild. With you, I fly
New music from Leaf Rapids out of Winnipeg. That was Starling to a Starling. You'll find that track on their upcoming album, Velvet Paintings, out April 19th.
Your local news at your fingertips.
CBC News has a local news app made for your phone or tablet.
So don't waste time scrolling for the local stories you want. Just download the app to get the information that matters to you when it happens.
And how you want it.
Another way to get your local news. The CBC News app. Download it today.
It is 12:48. I'm Janet Stewart, and you're listening to Radio Noon. At the end of March, the federal government proposed a Renters' Bill of Rights, which it says will protect tenants across the country. Ottawa also introduced a plan to create a $1.5 billion fund that would go into preserving affordable rent. But what do these plans really mean for Canadians? On Saturday, the CBC program Just Asking asked callers for their thoughts on a renter's bill of rights. Carolyn Weitzman answered their questions. She's a housing researcher and adjunct professor at the University of Ottawa. Here's what some callers shared with her and with host Sarah Jo Coelho.
I'm almost 70. I can't find a place to live. I can't find a place to work. I am just right on that edge of being, maybe a couple of weeks away from going off the cliff. There is a 5-year waiting list for any subsidized housing. It's putting people at the lowest level of society in the greatest amount of direct harm. So creation of a policy, wonderful thing, but it's just an academic exercise. I mean, the outcome of today's activities at a policy level will not be felt for another 5 years. And that's, I'll be dead by then. The question is, how would that policy-making exercise today impact somebody like me, create a better situation for somebody like me today or tomorrow or next week or next month?
I think it's really important to amplify those kinds of voices, because when I say that there are 3 million households, many of them single people, but many of them couples or people with children who need housing at less than $1,000 a month, the market simply isn't providing that kind of housing. Without a really scaled up non-market public housing, co-op housing, community housing sector, without that, we're going to see more and more people falling into homelessness, and that means more people presenting at emergency rooms, more people in encampments, more people dying much younger than they need to. So it's a matter of life and death for many, many people.
BC, for example, limits rent increases to a certain percentage each year. But if you move out, the landlord can up your rent by whatever they want. And there's no way to find out what the guy before you was paying. Why aren't rents tied to the unit rather than allowing landlords to pursue rent evictions, or when someone moves out of the unit, up the rent to whatever they wish?
There's only 2 provinces that still don't allow rents to be increased between tenants, PEI and Manitoba, I believe. The rental registry would help, at least in terms of keeping track of what the rents were, but without the legal mechanism, which is currently at the provincial and territorial level, to have vacancy control, you could know that there was a huge rent increase, but there's absolutely nothing that I would be able to do about it today. So I think that the federal government should be supporting purpose-built rental supply, but it also needs to protect renters' rights, which the federal government is just starting to talk about as of last week.
I used to be a landlord in Montreal up until a few years ago, and stopped being because it was impossible to actually provide decent quality housing and still break even, given the rental control in Montreal. And it's a perspective that you don't see or you don't hear very often on air. So I guess my question is that how do you guarantee a good supply for tenants at a reasonable price, while still actually giving the incentives there for landlords to actually be able to provide it without losing money?
So I guess the bottom line is that the federal government needs to start with the question, who needs what kind of housing, where, and at what cost, and then develop policies that are based on evidence of what works to create the kind of housing that people need where they need it. And a lot of those measures, are going to have aspects of change and unpopularity, but there's all kinds of levers that we can pull. But the most important thing that we need to do is ask the question, how are we going to create housing in the right places at the right cost?
Those are just some of the contributors to CBC's Just Asking. Just Asking is a podcast you can hear right here on the radio on Saturday afternoons here on CBC. You can also find it wherever you find your podcast and, of course, on the CBC Listen app. Call-in shows are interesting because you get so many different opinions, and people offer thoughts that you may not have ever occurred to you before. That's why we're thinking of starting a call-in show here on Radio Noon. We take the second half of this program and effectively turn it over to you. Ask a question, something that you care about, and help guide a conversation as we hear what you think. So what questions are you dying to have us explore? We'd love to hear from you. Call our listener line, 204-788-3797. Again, that's 204-788-3797. And let us know what you're thinking about and what questions we should be asking.
Robin sing, all I can think about is money. If I'm gonna make it, if I should even try to find my way, navigate the water, time is in question, I need help. Creator, give me courage, cause I'm scared as hell. Everything keeps changing, I'm unsure of myself. Don't know where I'm going, but I know just what to find. Looking for a little piece of As the moonlight rises on disappearing days, I wonder if the red road will let me take a break from these chains. I'm too young to be helpless, scared of being selfish and treating you that way. Creator, give me courage, cause I'm scared as hell. Everything keeps changing, I'm unsure of myself. Don't know where I'm going, but I know just what to find. Looking for a little piece of a little piece of Creator, give me courage, cause I'm scared as hell. Everything keeps changing, I'm unsure of myself. Don't know where I'm going, but I know just what to find. Looking for a little piece of a little piece of a little piece of
Out of Brandon, Manitoba, where it just might be 27 degrees this coming Saturday. I'll believe it when I see it. That was Mitchell McCoons with Courage. Faith Fundal joins us now. Faith, of course, is host of Up to Speed here on CBC Radio 1 and your CBC Listen app and YouTube. We're everywhere, Faith. What's coming up in the program today?
Might need what that artist was singing about, courage.
A little courage?
Because it is that time of year, spring cleaning time.
Oh, no.
And I don't know about you, but it takes a lot of effort, mental effort for me to get started. Once I'm going, it's not so bad.
No.
But to actually get started,
I'm dreading it as I sit here talking about it.
It's challenging. I'm already feeling the hairs behind my... So we're going to speak with an expert about how you get over that or manage through that, and has advice on how to maintain things with the least amount of effort.
Oh, my goodness. Now, I heard once 15 minutes a day, just 15 minutes a day, Janet. You can do this. Come on, 15 minutes a day. Just clean one thing, 15 minutes. Yeah.
Yep. Never going to happen.
Never going to happen.
Might happen. So we'll have more on that on the show this afternoon.
Hopefully, you'll have help for me.
Fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed. I'll come back. I'll report tomorrow. The place is spotless.
Talk to you soon.
Faith, thank you for coming in, Faith. And thank you so much for joining us today. It's fun. Remember, we're looking for ideas for call-in shows. So please give us a call or send me an email, janet.stewart@cbc.ca. Have a fabulous rest of your Tuesday, and we'll talk with you tomorrow.
Samantha Cole.